Rewind-A-Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from Jon and Waiting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Hello, everybody. It is John Pollock, and joining me tonight, he is the man, the myth, the legend himself. _ Andrew Thompson is here with me on Rewind-A-Dynamite. Andrew, hello and welcome.
What's going on, Joe Po? It's good to see you, my man. Always a good time to be able to talk with either you or Waiting on one of the post shows. I feel fully recovered, man. After I think I had a fight with the flu over the past couple of weeks, but I'm feeling like me again, man. I'm feeling like
recharged, getting back to 100%. As yes, this illness, it took down many of us over this past month. It is that time of the year, so bundle up, everybody. The weather is no joke. COVID is no joke. It's it's that fun time of the year. But we have lots to catch up with and discuss on tonight's edition of Dynamite, starring Shayna Wayne in the closing moments of Dynamite at the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. But want to let everybody know a few notes before we jump into the news is we are running a contest that is going to be running until Friday, where anyone that is in Toronto has a chance to go see an advanced screening next Thursday at the Scotiabank Theatre of The Iron Claw, featuring the Von Erich family. So we're running contests on both our Instagram and our Twitter. So you can just go at Post Wrestling to either social account, and there pinned at the top is all of the details of how you can enter. Very simple contest to jump into on Instagram. Just follow us and follow the rules. On Twitter, we are getting a little more creative, where we are asking you to cast your wrestling bio out there. Who would play if there was a bio on Andrew Thompson, who would play him? Andrew Thompson is eligible for such a wrestling bio out there that maybe one day we will see.
If I had to choose like any actor, I don't know. I have no clue. It probably had to be somebody funny, probably like Kevin Hart or somebody like that. Like I just need somebody hilarious to be in a role.
You've got at least a foot over Kevin Hart, I would say.
Let me throw that back at you. If you had to choose any actor to play you in a movie, who would it be?
Oh, I'm going straight Macaulay Culkin, man. Let's just let's just keep it from Home Alone days and bring it up. But yes, that is just some of the ideas that you can throw your way, and we will announce the winners on Monday. So again, you don't have to be living in Toronto, but you do have to get to Toronto next Thursday to see the Iron Claw, which the night before the Von Erichs will be on Dynamite next week. We will get into that.
That's like perfect timing right there.
It is.
Perfect.
It is indeed. Also want to let people know that our annual Post Wrestling Christmas show is going to be coming up in a couple of weeks. The Post Jingle Contest. The thread is open at forum.postwrestling.com. You have until December 21st to submit your Christmas-themed jingle up on the thread. We will go through all of the submissions on the Christmas show. We will crown a winner for this year. So this is where people can showcase their artistic muscle, their musical talents on the annual Christmas show. So that is up at forum.postwrestling.com to submit. But let us get into some of the news items before Dynamite, and wanted to start off just coming off of NXT on Tuesday night, and we'll go over the updated card for Deadline this Saturday. But I guess the big headline news coming out of the show, Andrew, is someone that you have spoken with in the past, and that is Wes Lee, who came out into the ring and made this announcement that he has suffered a pretty serious back injury. He's going to need surgery. At least on the broadcast, they were throwing out the timeline of 8 to 12 months. And, and he's off of Deadline, obviously, and this match with Dominic Mysterio. So it sounds like this was sustained in the 4-way last week, where he won the shot. It was a hell of a match last week for him to get the shot against Dominic Mysterio, but a very serious setback, and came across as somebody that you could really see the emotion here in this guy. Like this sounds like this is he's had some unfortunate setbacks, not just injury wise, but of course with the firing of Zachary Wentz, that really put his team or his status, I should say, all up in the air, where he went from being a featured performer on NXT to now he's a singles guy. And now this is going to be his latest setback.
Yeah, that's real rough for Wes Lee. Like I don't even know like any other way to put it. That's just rough for him. I feel terrible for the dude because I mean like he was having like that initial NXT North American title run. Like he was having like a great run, being the whole fighting champion thing. And then of course Dominic Mysterio when his uprise moved into the picture, and then he had to move to the side a little bit. But it felt like all signs were pointing to Saturday being Wes Lee's recrowning, if you will. For him
That's what it felt like.
For him getting the North American Championship back. But unfortunately, that's not gonna happen for him. So I hope Wes Lee is able to recover smoothly. But yeah, that's rough, bro. Back surgery. That's because I know they didn't get into like the specifics, of the surgery. Like we just had Randy Orton who just came back from the spinal fusion surgery. I know they didn't get into the specifics of it, but the emotion on his face, you could tell was this kind of just came out of nowhere. Like when I saw him on the screen and he had the crutch, I was like, I thought they were going to do some type of like work angle, like to build some momentum for him going into the show, and then you get the official news that this is like something legit. So yeah, definitely feel terrible for Wes Lee, man, and that's I hope he's able to recover smoothly from that back injury. That ain't no joke right there.
Yeah, and I mean a back, it's like a neck injury. You don't want to rush back from something like that. Like get it fixed and make sure that like you could have chronic issues. You could have significant, like look at Randy Orton. Like that was 18 months out. And there was the question, will he come back? Like at least he is young enough that get this fixed properly, because that's not a part of the body you want to be, shortcutting.
I was about to say, just to add on to your point about what you were talking about, like, I don't think it's like a good, I mean, I get the optimism of it, but like considering how serious and what could be the nature of this specific back injury, I don't think it's a good idea to like just be like throwing timelines, like saying, hey, this guy's going to be back in a year's time. Like, there's no way.
Hasn't even had surgery yet. Like you're right. You have no idea.
You have no idea when this is going to like be fully healed, and then you got to go through the process of training properly and getting cleared by WWE medical. Like I don't think there's like any set date on when Wes Lee is going to be back. Like again, Randy's been gone for 18 months, so like I don't think there's like any set date that you can predict or any specific timeline considering this the severity of this injury. But yeah, again, I definitely hope he speeds up. I mean, he recovers smoothly, and this doesn't hinder his long-term career.
So in his place will be Dragon Lee, who is going to challenge Dominic Mysterio, and they're going to have Ray in Dragon Lee's corner. So this is a match they did not all that long ago. And I'm wondering if you just continue the run with Dominic at this point, or do you just do like it really did feel like this was going to be the send-off for Dominic to lose to Wes Lee. Like the whole story had been built around that. I guess you could go a different direction with Dragon Lee, and he's going back and forth between the main roster, but it seems like he's starting to get his feet under him on SmackDown. This kind of just feels like a fill-in. Like you could do it. It's just there's really, little. It's not the momentum that you had with Wes Lee of building up this whole thing of him going home, coming back, and then working his way back to this title.
Yeah, I was actually about to ask you that. Like, do you think they just continue Dominic's run? I mean, I think at this point you might as well just continue. When I think Dominic has beaten Dragon Lee twice already in their North American title matches. Like he's 2-0 on them. You might as well just go to third. I'm pretty sure Ray is going to factor in. Rhea's going to be at ringside. I'm assuming that she's going to help him win. But I mean, at this point, I kind of would just continue on with Dominic's reign. Just to further continue this whole Judgment Day having all the gold type of thing. You might as well. I mean, you could put the title on Dragon Lee, but like you said, Dragon Lee, it feels like Dragon Lee.
If you want to do like the feel good win, and we were going to do a title change, like you could do it. And the fact he's 0-2, like maybe you do just give him the win here. I mean, it seems as though they had this curveball, so you have to make do with what your plans are, where you want to go from there. Ilya Dragunov against Baron Corbin for the NXT Championship. If Ilya wins, perhaps he'll be able to fly his family over for Christmas. That sounds like the biggest incentive for him here. And then our Iron Survivor Challenge matches. The men's match has Dijak, Trick Williams, Josh Briggs, Braun Breaker, and Tyler Bate. The women's match, Tiffany Stratton, Latch Legend, Blair Davenport, Kalani Jordan, and Fallon Henley. Did you like these matches last year, the concept of them and how they were executed? I mean, they kind of borrowing from several different gimmick matches, but certainly a King of the Mountain feel to these.
Yeah, it was something interesting, something different. I'm always down for something different, something I guess fresh per se. This year's feel for the men's Iron Survivor Challenge is kind of. Like I don't really know how I feel. Like I'm much more interested in the women's the women's portion of the Iron Survivor Challenge is much more um interesting field in terms of like in the different directions that these individual characters could go coming out of this. But the men's Iron Survivor Challenge is kind of just like I don't really. I mean, I think the only interesting thing for me in there is Trick Williams and how that plays into Carmelo Hayes as well because
Mhm.
he's also featured in this card. I'm pretty sure you was gonna bring that up and who his opponent is. I actually got a question for you about that too. About that his opponent and his uh his trajectory in NXT so far. I've said a lot of mixed reviews about this gentleman, but yeah, the Iron Survivor Challenge. I like the concept. It's, I'm always down for something new. What do you think about the Iron Survivor Challenge and the fields for this year's men's and women's matches?
Well, first of all, I thought the concept came off well last year. I thought like the matches, like they did a good job with them. They were entertaining, they were fun, and it's usually whenever there's a new stipulation match and there's this laundry list of stipulations, you think it's going to be confusing, but then in the execution, like it came across fine. In terms of the field, um, like the men's one is interesting because like I think Trick and Carmelo Hayes is the hottest program they have going at the moment. So I don't even you can certainly continue this where it's Trick winning yet again and Carmelo Hayes still feeling like he's now being moved to the shadow. But it's not like Trick even needs this at this point. Like his
Yeah.
focus is Carmelo. I think that should be WrestleMania weekend that you can hold this off until then. I
Mm,
think that's a really big match for them to build to, and I think they've been doing a really effective job at it so far. Would Lexis King be my foil in all of this? I don't know. Lexis King has not lit the world on fire for me
yeah.
coming in. Like it to me is the promos haven't been there. You came in and so much of the focus was about the father, and you can't really stick with that too long, but I don't know. He's an odd part in the middle of this. Like he feels much closer to like a Joe Gacy than he does, one
Mm.
of your like top line players. And then you've got like a Braun Breaker who to me, like this
Bro,
guy
he is
is
just like biding his
dude,
time. Like
he graduated and he's coming back in September just to hang out after school. It's like, dude, man, you've moved on. Like
it's
it's like this is a victory lap.
that senior who graduated and always come back on campus, bro. Like
That's it. That's it. It's like, yeah, the campus adult. Yeah, this guy to me, he's just like he's moved on to me. I just think he's biding time here. I feel kind of similar with Roxanne Perez. Like I think both of them
yes,
are at that point where I feel they could both make the leap at this point. And for Breaker, I don't know what more you're waiting for. Like he took to this heel character seamlessly. I think it was worthwhile to have him try out as
yeah.
a heel on NXT, but he's done great. I think he could be a really effective heel, and that, uh, you know, I would certainly look at this as your time to be looking at what's the exit strategy here.
I'm about to say, especially for Roxanne Perez, like I think that it's always good to have like that good like that good white meat baby face that you can root for and pull behind and stuff like that. I definitely there's been a lot of people who've been saying that Roxanne should have been called up by now, but like at this point, I think she's kind of treading into that like that Braun Breaker territory where it kind of just feels like she's just like waiting for or they're just waiting for the right moment. I don't know if there is ever going to be like that perfect moment for every single talent that you're waiting to call up. I think sometimes you just got to do it and just see what sticks and see what happens. And then most of the time, like especially in the case of Braun Breaker, like you said, he's taken to this heel role really, really well. So I mean, I think that would be like a seamless transition for you to just move him. And you already have the established thing there with Seth Rollins. Like that, I think that would be a great way to introduce him on the main roster again. Did he beat Dolph Ziggler for the NXT title on Raw like last year or something like
Yeah,
that?
they did the title
Yeah,
swap,
yeah, there you
and
go.
then
Yeah, there
yeah,
you go. So I
he
mean,
won it back.
you just reintroduce him on Monday Night Raw. You already got the established thing with Seth Rollins. That would be a great way to make him feel like a big deal. Be like, hey, I'm the guy coming after the world heavyweight title. It's like ready made. And if for Roxanne, like again, I'm always a big fan of like having like that like white baby face that actually comes off as genuine. So yeah, I mean, like you got two people who kind of just bide their time. And then for Lexus King, it's not hitting for me, man. Like the beard is terrible. It's not working. I don't like. Just like all jokes aside, like I just don't feel like the character is connecting the way that they are trying to get it to connect. It's not coming off Like I'm just not feeling it, and I don't know what he can do to make it work, but I feel like
This is
they're
a
kind
pretty
of trying to.
big stage for him on
Yeah,
Saturday to go out and have a big match. You're there with Carmelo Hayes. Like they should be able to have, it like I think this will be kind of a lot of people's sort of their decision making on Lexus King in terms of, can this guy step up and have a big match here? A lot of it has been the character stuff. His limited matches, I don't think they've been all that they haven't stood out in a big way. So this is his opportunity to kind of, if you've been doubting him, I guess you could see how he performs here with Carmelo, because it is a big angle, and he's kind of this foil that they have in the middle of it all. But I have a similar opinion to you so far on the introduction of him. And then rounding out the card is Roxanne Perez and Kiana James in a steel cage match. And also added on the pre-show will be Axiom against Nathan Frazier. So this is looking like a very interesting card. I will say I think this is some of the best work Baron Corbin has done in this lead up. Like, I'm not advocating for him to win this title, but I think he's been fine in terms of a one pay-per-view cycle as your challenger. And I guess the question is, how much more is this sort of what you max out with Baron Corbin? Because I don't see his prospects being much different once he goes back to the main roster eventually. Like, this is a fine spot for him.
This kind of feels like the apex, if you will, of Baron Corbin's NXT run. Like now, it kind of feels like he'll be another person that is kind of just biding their time and just waiting. But like at the same time, you might want to keep him in NXT because it's been some of the it's been able to rejuvenate him in a way. But when you say I think if they send him back to the main roster, he'll just be like an Apollo Crews situation. Like Apollo Crews kind of found himself in NXT.
Who's this? I'm not familiar. Apollo Crews. I only watch WWE. I'm not familiar with this Apollo Crews you speak of.
Dude, like Apollo, he like really was able to at least gain some type of character in NXT. Went back to the main roster. This dude just vanished. And I think it's going to be the same exact thing for Baron Corbin. I think he'll go to the main roster, probably have a match or two, reintroduce him, and they'll try to do something. It won't click, and then he'll be on the sidelines, back to square one. I think he will be in the exact same situation.
Couldn't Apollo see this coming in the future?
That was one of the runs, one of the turning points about this character work that I was not a fan of. I remember me and Braden Harrington. We did a podcast. I think it was Halloween Havoc 2022. We would call him Spooky Cruise because he kept seeing this in the future. It was hilarious. Anybody go check that out on the Up Next section of postwrestling.com. There you go. Me and Braden Harrington talking about Apollo Crews and his visions.
We need an update if his kids are back to watching Raw and SmackDown now. They stopped. Remember that promo? He's like, my kids wouldn't even watch SmackDown anymore when I was doing this the character. So there you go. That is Deadline coming up Saturday night, and Braden and Davey will have you covered. They will be doing a show live on Saturday night. I wanted to ask you a bit about any of your takeaways. Randy Orton was on the Impulsive podcast with Logan Paul. You wrote a couple of stories for the site. I have not had a chance to. I saw some clips of Orton speaking about this, his time away over the last 18 months, teaming with Matt Riddle. But what did you take from the interview and kind of the spirits that Randy Orton is in? This is his, I guess, first notable interview since coming back.
Yeah, I mean, it was like in terms of like the interview style, it felt like I wasn't expecting like any like groundbreaking questions like from Logan Paul. It kind of just felt like a guy who is very much admires his coworker and somebody who he's watched for a certain period of time. And that's kind of what it felt like. Got all the like the questions one would think like a Logan Paul would ask, and especially for his audience, that may not be like within the ins and outs of pro wrestling, and they understand it to a certain extent and understand these characters and these names to a certain extent. Randy speaking about his time away, being gone for 18 months in the spinal fusion surgery. He talked about how it became very rough for him to even do certain things like just get on the airplane or whatever like that because he had slipped disc in his back, and like it just became like very rough for him to like just do basic things about pain shooting down his legs and the things that you would expect that you've heard over time from various wrestlers who've had these either neck or back or spinal injuries, anything of the sort. And like he did mention that his tag run with Matt Riddle, that's last portion, like the back end of that run, he like expressed gratitude to Riddle for taking the physical brunt of their matches, because Randy said if he was that was like a solo thing, he wouldn't have been able to get through that. But he did say, like, later on in the interview, like, he said that he felt like he had a lot left in the tank. Like, he's 43 years old, but that's not old. Like, Randy just been in WWE so long that I think that he appears or people may think he's older than what he is. He's 43 years old, but that's still young, relatively young. So, I mean, you know, he was talking about like that and, you know, still feeling like he had a lot left in the tank and, you know, talked about his match with Dominic and, you know, talked about like the RKO with Seth Rollins. And, you know, he hit all the hits in the interview, but it wasn't anything groundbreaking, if you will. But you know, when you have a name like Randy Orton who doesn't really do that much media, you know, it's always going to be a couple stories in there when you have a talent of that magnitude who tends to stay out of the media, if you will, to a certain degree when it comes to doing these public interviews.
The Riddle run for like all the discussion of it, I think the most that Orton got out of it, other than, you know, being able to, you know, get by when now we know how physically limited he was, but it was also the first time we got to see him really embrace like a babyface run. Like it was just something that never clicked with him back when they tried. Like he was just a natural heel. And now you've seen him come back. He's gotten great reactions. The numbers have been strong for the limited segments that he's been in. And, you know, he's definitely got this run as a babyface. You could turn him down the road, but they, you know, for all the talk of CM Punk overshadowing this guy, like, I don't think that was the case. I think Randy's had a pretty big return, and they built the whole SmackDown around him last Friday, and it feels like a big deal that he's back, and you'll have him on SmackDown and presumably Punk on Raw.
Hey, do you think it's gonna be Randy versus Roman at the Rumble?
I do, yes.
Yeah. Okay,
I think that's the direction to go. It's a hot program to do. Randy is as over as he's ever been at the moment. Right. I think that's the match to go to. Yeah.
Let me ask you this: you bring up Punk, since he's gonna be on SmackDown this Friday, you got to do some type of interaction with him and Heyman, right? Like it like that. I feel like that's something that is so obvious. Or do you kind of save that for, like, I guess later down the line, especially considering like it seems like he's just going to be on Monday Night Raw, so like it kind of maybe you just doing it just to do it. But like I know
it would seem, you know, unless they have some deliberate reason not to, I could see at least some kind of acknowledgement. They pass by in the hallway. I think they'll do something in that regard. I would think so. So yes, we will see CM Punk on a Tribute to the Troops this Friday with what's the husband and wife duo that they've added. The War and the Treaty are the group that is playing on Friday. So
you talking about the band?
Oh, the band, yes. The War and Treaty, I think, is what it's called. Or anyway, music that I have not heard. Andrew,
you want to know what's so funny? I saw like this article about the dude Morgan Waller, who's I think he's performing with the band. Not good things about that man. I've heard definitely seen. It's a video out there about him, like that. He said some things on camera. Morgan Waller has
this is the guy that performs with the group that's playing on SmackDown.
I think he's in the song.
He's in the song. Okay.
He's featured on the song. Dude, he said the N-word like in a video. Like he was arguing with somebody. He let that thing fly. Like he just
boy.
I think it was from 2021. But like the video had like resurfaced like on social media and stuff, like he like just floating around, and I saw it on Twitter and stuff like that, and I was like, oof. I'm pretty sure.
What's his name? What's his name again?
Morgan Waller.
Well, maybe they'll be asked, can you just change the lyrics to Grayson Waller for we don't want to reference this guy. We will see. Yeah.
Morgan
They've also
Waller,
got
that guy.
Hardy is doing one of the themes as well for Friday. A WWE favorite as well. So.
And Jelly Roll.
Is Jelly Roll performing?
No. I was just blowing him up because he was on the.
We could have had all the hits there, man. Boy, I don't know how much we're selling Tribute to the Troops for people, but that's what's coming up on Friday. Will Ospreay has been added to TNA's Snake Eyes event, so he's going to be doing Battle in the Valley on Saturday night, which is the same night as Hard to Kill, and then Sunday night he will be doing Snake Eyes. So this is back-to-back nights for TNA, as it will be rebranded that weekend, happening in Las Vegas. And I guess it remains to be seen with Ospreay's deal with AEW. How much will he be? We know that he'll be doing select New Japan dates. Will that extend to having the freedom to do, other select shows? He was very high on the idea of doing TNA, but if I am AEW, I'm looking at a big investment here. And do I want this guy going out and doing all of these independents and doing TNA? It's like, we'll let you do New Japan, but we don't want you doing the G1. And, do you really have to be going and doing your call shows at this stage when we're paying you all of this amount and cannot allow you to get hurt, especially before Wembley?
I say Ospreay, he's going to be like joining AEW full time for the road to Revolution, right? So he said he's going to be Then what's the week before Battle in the Valley? What's that? Wrestle Kingdom. He'll be in the 3-way.
He's doing Wrestle Kingdom.
Yep.
Presumably Dash the next day he'll be on, and then then the following week is this double shot here with Battle in the Valley and Snake Eyes.
Yeah, I definitely think when we get to that Revolution build up to that show, I definitely think that Tony Khan is probably gonna be like, all right, let's slow it down, AEW exclusive type thing. I mean, Ospreay's a high commodity, man. Like he's like, I think this year he is the best wrestler like out there for this year. Like just the match quality this dude is at, and he's as hot as he's ever been. Like in terms of like the popularity and like just the intrigue around his matches and the things he's been able to do. So I definitely think at some point Tony Khan's probably going to tone that down in terms of like what hitting these different markets and stuff like that. But also I'm very interested considering because I know there was a report out there that Ospreay is going to continue residing in the UK.
Yes.
So I mean, one would assume if he's going to be living in the UK that he'll continue working with RevPro, and like he's openly spoken about that relationship that he has with Andy Cooldan, and Andy Cooldan has spoken about the relationship with Ospreay.
I can definitely see RevPro being carved into the odd show that he does there.
Exactly. Yeah, I can definitely see him still collaborating and working with RevPro. As far as like TNA and stuff like that, I think that's definitely going to slow down. I think Ospreay just getting that in for the time being. Hey, what is your like interest level in the TNA rebrand? Like, does that like do anything for you, or is it kind of just like
no,
cool? It's cool for what it is, or is it like kind of just like
Here's the thing: if I find Impact to be a really enjoyable product most weeks. It's 2 hours. I enjoy the show most weeks, so it's like I like watching that show each week. If I didn't have that interest, the branding would mean absolutely nothing. I would think my hope, if I'm Impact, is that this does bring about some curiosity for that pay-per-view, that people tune in, and it is like a good product. It's not like they have this awful product and are just putting the TNA letters up there and people are going to tune in and not be interested in the show. But the branding itself means nothing to me. I don't think anyone is tuning in or out because of the name of the show, but they have genuinely improved from a time when they were like a couple of years ago. Like you couldn't buy good press if you were Impact Wrestling, and they have definitely gotten out of that position. Now it's just fighting for attention. Like just as we mentioned, like Hard to Kill, they're going up that night against Battle in the Valley. Like you're fighting for the same fans that are, and Collision, that's a Saturday night Collision. So it's really tough when you're asking people to spend money on your product and they've got other options, and you're fighting for this wrestling fan base that they only have so many hours on a Saturday night to watch this. And are they going to make that time for a TNA? And perhaps it'll be, if there's curiosity, it's that show because of the first time back and what they do as well. So you and I are gonna have to discuss what are we gonna do on that Saturday night. That's gonna be I'm realizing how many shows are going on that particular night.
That's great.
One thing on the AEW or even TNA front as well, coming up, I think it's like within a week or so, maybe 10 days, is when all of those 90-day non-competes are up from the last round of WWE talent cuts. I would assume most are placing like your Mustafa Ali's, Dolph Ziggler's at the top of that list. But like, do you see AEW taking a bite on any of them? Several of them? Like, are there any that kind of makes sense to you when you do have this loaded roster at AEW, but Tony Khan seems to have this continued appetite to sign guys?
But it's so crazy. Like, it's like the wrestling news cycle is so crazy. Like when you think about all those releases that happened, what was that, late September? Like it's only been like 2 months, and like that seems like yesteryear when all those people got cut from WWE. I saw
and they always do it on your day too, as well.
It's always on a Tuesday or Thursday, but like I saw Mason Mansoir, they got announced for the GCW FE GCW show. I saw that, and Dolph I mean, as far as Dolph go, like I think Dolph and Ryan Nemeth in AEW, that kind of feels like just a given kind of thing. Like I feel like that'll happen at some point. So somebody who I'm very interested in to see what they do is Shelton Benjamin.
Right.
I still feel Shelton has a lot to offer, especially from a backstage perspective. Like I think that he would be a nice fit. I mean, I could see him going to TNA, being a part of that as well. I think they would utilize him very well. Like in terms of like the AEW aspect, I don't think it's you just want to be like signing any and everybody, but I also think that on the TNA front, moving back to them, I feel like they do a very good job of finding a spot for most people on their roster. Like if you can be in any position most of the time on TNA's or Impact's roster, and they'll find something that'll work or try to make it work. And they've done that for like majority of talents that have come through their locker room over the past several years or so. So I can see a couple of those. Like I can see like an Aaliyah fitting in at Impact and then finding some type of career resurgence. It might not be like on a grand scale, but it'll be something to the level of which Impact can offer her to where she'll be able to build up some more value for herself. I can see that happening for her at an Impact. And I can see like a Mason or Mansoir leaning into like the comedy, Johnny Swinger, Zicky Dice type of role where they'll be able to add a new element to what they've already built with that ongoing existing thing. But
there's a higher probability, I would say, of creative fulfillment in TNA.
Yeah.
Like if you're weighing like money offers that come your way, certainly like AEW would likely have the edge there. But if you're somebody that like AEW is a crapshoot in the sense that you might go there and you could just be lost in the shuffle. Like there is just so many of those. Like maybe you'll break through, but maybe not. And in Impact, it's a smaller roster, but like if I was a female performer, like my roadmap would be a Deonna Purrazzo, who like, where does she go if she was signed with AEW? Like maybe it would have turned out great for her, but Impact was a great choice for her. And I think she doesn't wear that ex WWE label like some others do. Like she was there in NXT, but hardly is classified in that kind of a way.
WWE guy, WWE girl type thing. Yeah, that's not her. Yeah, for sure. And she did Deonna Purrazzo. But you want to know what you're talking about? Somebody who's I mean, I think Trinity will always be remembered amongst most fans. You know, for her time at WWE, she was there for so long. But like, dude, I'm not shocked at how her run has turned out at Impact. But dude, it seems like from just all accounts and like from hearing her interviews, seeing like the videos and stuff that's been posted from her various roster members and hearing Scott D'Amore talk about it, dude, she fits in like a glove there. Like it seems like she's just having like a ball in Impact and TNA. Like I honestly, like, I remember I talked about it with Nate and Chris on the NWA podcast. Like when she initially put her schedule out, I thought that she was just going to be there from that initial introduction to Slammiversary, and that was going to be like it. And then maybe she'll go to AEW, or you know. I mean, at that point, I wasn't thinking like WWE because I figured like hell would have to freeze over at some point for something to go down with that. But like dude, she is like really like fit in really well. They've like treated her great. Like the storylines have been very consistent for her. Like she's had consistent challenges, like really solid matches. Dude, I've been like really impressed with how Trinity's running Impact has turned out. Like it's very, very, very interesting to see how that's all unfolded. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of like Impact might be the best destination for this specific group batch of talents that were released in September. But definitely on the AEW side, I can see like a Shelton Benjamin and a Dolph Ziggler heading over to AEW.
Last few notes here. The New Japan World Tag League, the final round robin matches of the A block went down today, where Alex Coughlin and Gabe Kidd defeated Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols. And earlier in the show, Tomohiro Ishii and Yano got beat by Great Khan and Hanare. So that eliminated Ishii and Yano. So Coughlin and Kidd and TMDK end with 10 points, and they move to the semifinals. So Coughlin and Kidd, because of the tiebreaker, beating Haste and Nichols, they will face the second place finisher of the B block. TMDK faces the winner of the B block, and that will go down Thursday. With the B block matches, it's just down to 2 matches. The 2 advance with Goto and Yoshihashi against Taichi and Yuya Uemura, and Lance Archer and Alex Zane against El Fantasmo and Hikuleo. Semifinals are Friday. Finals are on Sunday. And then have you been following any of the World Tag League? This is sort of a tournament that has come and gone in a slew of tournaments that are going on at the moment.
Yeah, I'm mostly keeping up like with the stuff that you and Neil do on the site, like mostly just keeping up with the results like that. That's why I haven't seen like much of the World Tag League. Like I've gone to like watch I guess like 1 or 2 matches that I found interesting, but for the most part, I really haven't been keeping up with it. I saw that Ren-Narita joined House of Torture.
Yes.
What is that?
I'm sure WH Park was just sitting back and basking in this wonderful trajectory now for Ren-Narita. Yes, so he is out of strong style into House of Torture. So there you go. That's all of your news. You can read myself, Andrew, Neil Flanagan, up at postwrestling.com. All the latest news. We've got stuff today on AEW's viewership figures for the last month. The All Japan Real World Tag League wrapping up today with Katsuhiko Nakajima and Hokuto Omori winning that tournament as well. So plenty of tournaments going on, including the Continental Classic that was on focus on Wednesday night at Montreal's Bell Center. Their second night in a row at the Bell Center, because on Tuesday night they taped Collision, which will air Saturday. So we're taping into the future here, where they had to technically tonight was before last night's taping, like in canon technically. So a confusing bit, but regardless, second night the Bell Center, they WrestleTix reporting over 5,200 tickets, which was a fine amount that they got. Maybe a little. Tuesday was a very disappointing number. They were under 3,000 for a market like Montreal, and the first time you're going there would be disappointing. I would say 5,200 is like a fine number for Dynamite. Regardless, doesn't not a sellout, but at least a lively crowd tonight.
What would you say the tape aspect? Like, would you say that? Would you like accredit that to the attendance number for the Tuesday show? Like the fact that it wasn't like a live broadcast?
I think there's several factors. I'm sure that running a Tuesday night had its impact on it as well. The fact is, up here in Canada, to watch Collision, it's only on a streaming service that you have to pay additional for. So I would say the viewership of Collision is probably pretty low in Canada. And I think it just overall, like there was not a whole lot of promotion for the first night, and all of the attention seemed to be on Christian and Adam Copeland for the second night, and Dynamite being like the stronger brand of the two. I think it's a big ask for people if you don't have some big blockbuster shows to go 2 nights in a row. So I think it's several factors, but still, I thought their first time in Montreal, like this is one of those last markets they hadn't been to that could do sizable business. And they did announce a Canadian tour for next year, not including Montreal, by the way, in that return. So we will see when they come back here. But starting off the show was Jon Moxley and Rush in the Gold League. Moxley has 6 points, Rush has 3, and early on they fight into the crowd. Rush grabs a beer can and knocks Moxley with the beer can. And I like rewound this. I'm like, was that a beer can? And it damn sure looked like a beer can. And maybe you can give some leeway that Rush just didn't put 2 and 2 together, but this was a really odd spot that I don't think that Jon Moxley should be the subject of alcoholic beverages being thrown at. That seemed like a weird one. So I don't know if there was just messages crossed or Rush not thinking here, but this it definitely struck some people online afterwards. But I mean, this could be a case of just ignorance to the situation, but one of those like weird moments in the match.
Yeah, I think I saw like a couple tweets about that, and I didn't like when I saw it in real time. I didn't think anything of it, but then I hopped on Twitter and I saw a couple people like making some tweets about it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's. I mean, but I kind of just I guess I would just like chalk that up to what you said, just like the ignorance on Rush's part, and not in a negative sense, but more so just like grabbing something out the crowd and just throwing it at
doing like a heel tactic, but then realizing after the fact, like this is probably not the guy to be doing the spot with. But regardless, match continues. Moxley ran at Rush on the floor and got hit with an overhead belly to belly into the guardrail. Rush at one point tries to lift him up for a cross arm pile driver, couldn't get him up, and then just gives a regular pile driver. And they beat the count after a dive from Moxley. They're striking. The Bull's horns get stopped with forearms, and then a big lariat out of the corner by Moxley hits the Death Rider. Rush kicks out, so Moxley goes to the choke and puts Rush out at 14 minutes and 31 seconds. And with Moxley improving to 3-0, it puts Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal in a position where they have to win tonight or they are eliminated from the tournament. But what did you think about the opener on the show?
Yeah, it was a solid opener. I was expecting, Mox and Roosh basically just beat the shit out of each other. That's kind of what I thought going into the match, and then I think they did just that. I really like. I know we're gonna talk about it later, but I really like the matchup of Mox and Swerve. Like I really enjoy that dynamic and what that could be. And it's happening next week. I think that's like the perfect matchup for, because we have dove and did like a big segment, if you will, about this when we talk about an NWA podcast about like Swerve's trajectory and like where he should go in this long-term versus short-term gratification. But going back, we gonna get into all that. But yeah, as far as Mox versus Roosh go, it's a solid match. I've enjoyed the Continental Classic so far. I'm always big on anything with stakes in pro wrestling. I always like something like shit that matters. So I mean, I always enjoy like just these are like a string of matchups among some of your top talent in the men's division where it matters for the majority of these talents and what the outcome could be in terms of their trajectory going forward in AEW. So I enjoy Mox versus Roosh.
Yeah, not the match of the show, but like fine opener. Like there was like some momentary stuff where they were like a little off, but overall crowd was into this. And yes,
what'd you think about kick pad Moxley? What did you think about that Mox wearing kick pads? Did you
yeah, what did Swerve call them? The like dollar store kick pads that he had out there. So yes, he got mocked for these by Swerve a little later on as Moxley. We got a new look from him and no blood in this match as well.
Look at that, Moxley. Bro. So, I know the scar tissue in his head is just like, oh my goodness, like that's no blood.
Maybe the holidays are coming up. He's going to be maybe at some family get-togethers. Maybe he just wants to give it a rest, and then he's just going to go to town in January. Then we had a video on the history of Jay Lethal and Jay White, with White looking up to him in ROH, but now things have changed. They're 1-1 in their past singles matches, and they will meet later on. Renee Paquette brought out the Kingdom with Roderick Strong, and Roderick is wheeled out, and apparently the crowd was chanting in French, and thanks to Pat LaPrade translated for us that they were chanting, "We don't give a fuck," at this. So they were
really
not fans of this. And Roderick predicts that MJF is going to put a dagger in his new best friend by proxy, Samoa Joe. And Renee's questioning if he's really right about MJF. And Strong notes that there's consequences for your decisions. There's a reason that I'm in a wheelchair every day, because I live with those consequences until now. And he stands up from the chair. This does not quite get the reaction Linda McMahon did at WrestleMania when she stood up in the corner. But he will no longer be held back, and the wheelchair has held him back for far too long. Like, has it? This guy wrestled Action Andretti like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I know,
so
right?
I'm not the biggest fan of the Roderick Strong stuff.
I was about to ask you, have you not enjoyed the bit, the whole like him? The commentators playing along like, oh my God, it's a miracle.
This is kind of like the joke you hear for the first time, and it's really funny, and then you just continue it over and over and over and over again. At this point, I got it, and I don't quite understand that he wrestles, but he's also in this wheelchair. Is that the joke? Anyway, it's run its course for me, and it seems like the wheelchair has been ditched here. They just tossed it off the stage, and that was that for Roderick Strong.
There's a part of me that I'm not gonna lie, I did enjoy the whole, like just the sarcasm of him, like acting as if he's hurt, but then like going out here and having these matches, like doing random run-ins and like doing high knees to people, like, and then falling back. There was a part of me that did honestly enjoy it, but like there was a point, I don't know exactly when, but when it kind of just became like, okay, can we like get rid of the wheelchair at this point? So I'm glad they're moving away from that, it seems like, and hopefully we can move away from the whole neck brace thing, just get Roderick Strong back in the ring and doing what he does and moving forward with this storyline. Dude, it's so crazy. Like the like I think it's like obvious at this point, but just like the effect of Adam Cole's injury, like on so many of these different pockets of storylines, and then I just wonder how like what would have been and how things would have progressed if that injury at Grand Slam had not happened. You know what I'm saying? It's interesting to think about in hindsight.
We should also note that Fightful had the report that Kyle O'Reilly has apparently been backstage at some recent
Oh,
shows
that's good.
and could
That's
be
good.
on the cusp of returning. And seems like such a natural that like this guy's legit been out with like neck fusion surgery that
Yeah,
it seems to like fit like a glove to insert him somewhere in this, whether it's with the
got to.
Kingdom and Roddy or
Yeah,
opposing them, that he could come ready made for what's, a fairly pushed angle here with all of them.
you got to. So as soon as Kyle get back, whenever he's like, I'm glad to hear that he's back. Been backstage, but it's only right for him to be inserted into this storyline. Like I don't know like where exactly would be the best fit for him, but he certainly belongs in this storyline. Do you call Bobby Fish back, John?
How many fish could a fish fry? Whatever the saying was. I don't think we'll be hearing Matt Riddle bringing in Bobby Fish for that recreation. Renee is outside of MJF's locker room when Hangman Page shows up. Guy traveled all the way to Canada, and I'm not quite sure why. Like it was just to run into MJF in the back here by coincidence. Like what was he here for tonight?
He left his child at home again.
Yeah, like this is a big journey from Virginia to Montreal, but he arrives and he is asked by Renee about the death match and said, well, I got hit by a cinder block and was choked out, so I couldn't fly for a few weeks. Says that Swerve, you broke into my home, you went into my child's room, but you beat me in a death match, and I can recognize when I've lost. But Swerve, I took something from you in that match that you will never have back, and we will never be done. He promises Swerve that the thing that he wants, he is going to make sure he never gets it. And I take this to mean the AEW title that Hangman is going to, I think by the end of this, they could certainly end up where if Hangman is going to play this, this role of being the obstacle for Swerve to get to this title, Swerve is going to end up the big baby face, and it's going to be Hangman as the crowd is going to turn on Hangman because they are so into Swerve at this moment, and they want to see this guy in that championship picture, and they could end up here with this double turn, and the almost baby kidnapper will end up the baby face.
I think that would actually be an interesting dynamic, though. Like, I think Hangman has been, like, he's obviously one of the staples within all elite wrestling and has a continued trend of being within the same role in terms of his character personality, if you will. And I think it would be a very interesting dynamic to see him fully be on the other end of the spectrum against talent and Swerve, who is supposed to be positioned as a heel. But in this instance, over the last few months, he's like really endeared himself to the audience just based off his performances. And of course, with the addition of Prince Nana to the entire act, it just made everything smooth and it flowed really well. So it'll definitely be interesting to see a Swerve Strickland again, who is supposed to be positioned as a heel. But I think that the audience is just so behind this dude because everybody wants to see him get to that next level. And then you have a Hangman Page who's this staple in all elite wrestling. And then like the crowd sort of pushes him to the wayside for this other guy, you know what I'm saying, who's on the up and up. I think that'd be like a real interesting dynamic if that was something that comes to fruition.
Yeah, I feel these two, I like this, that they are keeping them sort of in each other's orbit, but they can still go on because the next time they have a match, it should be several months and it should be for the title. Like that should be a championship program the next time. And based off that Texas death match, when they go to that match again, it's going to be a big deal because of what they did and trying to top that. And it should be a title program by the time you get there.
I think when you have matches like that, like, and he said it, like they're going to be like bond together or connected together, and like you said, always within that same orbit. It's like what Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa did. Like those two will always be connected in some way, shape, or form through that match that they had. What was that, St. Patrick's Day Slam 2021? They will always be connected, and I think that because of the great match that Hangman and Swerve had, they'll always be, like you said, within each other's orbit. And again, just to repeat what you said, I think the next time that they do have that big match, it should feel like this should be a momentous occasion. It should just be like some throwaway random match. Even if it's a singles match on a pay-per-view, I think that it definitely should be for a championship at some point. Like whether that's I think it would mean more for the AEW World Championship, but I'm kind of thinking like, I guess in the short-term gratification, like maybe if Swerve is the person to win that Triple Crown, that could be like the next big match, him and Hangman for that Triple Crown Championship. Maybe you go that route, but I think it definitely would mean more within the grand scheme of their overall story for it to be for the AEW World Championship, however you choose to get there.
So MJF comes out of the locker room and jokes about Hangman and Swerve fighting over who could get more STDs in the Texas death match. Hangman responds saying,
"Did you laugh?"
I didn't laugh at that line.
I didn't laugh either. It wasn't that funny. It's
Hangman
a joke.
says, "I don't have 30 minutes to listen to you talk." And MJF says, "Well, I need to go out there for 30 minutes to wake them up after you." And Page comes back, "Are we really going to do this?" And they go over their whole history of Hangman winning the Casino Battle Royale at Double or Nothing 2019 after eliminating Max, then Max beating him in the Dynamite Dozen tournament, and MJF bragging that he's had a longer title reign than Hangman, and says that Page says that one day, MJF, you're going to be 70 years old, living alone, talking to one of your 9 cats. And then MJF accuses Page of being the devil, while Page figures everyone knows it's you that is the devil. And then before they can get into it, Samoa Joe gets between them and warns MJF, we have other issues tonight that don't involve him. And so we get the pull apart. And I guess this brings MJF's challengers and programs up to like a dozen by now.
Yes.
With Hangman Page added to the list.
What have you made so far of the dynamic between MJF and Samoa Joe? Like Joe literally said, I think in a promo verbatim, that until we get to World's End, I am always going to be in your vicinity. Like you may not know it, but I'll always be there. So in turn, he has to like care for MJF, but he doesn't care for MJF in the sense that one would use the term care. Like what have you made of this whole dynamic between those two individuals as we get closer to what we like 3 weeks out from?
Yeah, I mean, we're coming up the end of the month. I think Joe has been excellent in a story that can certainly get pulled into a lot of wacky directions. I thought last week the promo segment with Joe when he came out there, like the first half of that segment, I thought was outstanding. I thought that they did such a great job setting up the match, and then they did all the devil stuff, and that I just had no time for. So like the devil stuff to me has really been a negative over all of this. I don't hate like the mystery aspect to the devil, but some of this, like it's really getting into cartoon territory with
does it feel directionless to you in a way? Like it kind of feels like it's something like they're figuring out as they go.
It feels to me like it is not like it feels very cartoonish. It feels very low rent too, with like the costumes and such. They're even making fun of it in the promos, like the whatever Hangman called it, like the bargain bin masks that these guys are wearing. It feels very cartoonish when you do have, I think, a really great dynamic here with Joe and MJF that I think has to overcome some of this devil stuff that we'll get into.
Hey, would you put the title on Joe at World's End? Better question. Yeah, would you be against Joe winning the world title? Would you be against him beating MJF for the world title at World's End?
I'm not opposed to it. I guess it's all in like where you see this ending up at. Like personally, to me, I like if I'm going into the next year, like I'm looking at like a Swerve as my like big project for next year, and if Joe can help you get there, great. I don't think Joe is your long-term champion.
No. Yeah, for sure.
But you could do it like if you feel there's a need to freshen things up and get Max away from that. But it seems so much is tied to like the Adam Cole thing. I am sure if one day Tony Khan speaks about it, I'm sure that injury has caused just a gigantic ripple effect of what they had mapped out. Like I think they had to just rebook so much of their title scene with the loss of Adam Cole.
Yeah.
Mark Briscoe and Swerve Strickland is next with Strickland 2-0 in the tournament. Briscoe, with his back against the wall, 0-2, needs to win. Did not win the match, but they had a great outing here. They mentioned the fact that the Continental Classic will be coming back next year at the beginning of commentary. And then Swerve lands a flying elbow to the back and is working on the neck of Briscoe. They go to the floor. Briscoe is firing off chops, hits a fisherman buster, and then it's Swerve with the rolling flatliner. And Briscoe hits a somersault dive to the floor, an inside out lariat, and he intensifies here, stops a J driller. And then Swerve lands the house call, goes for the 450, landing on the knees of Mark, who then cradles. And there was this giant near fall by Mark, who follows with a froggy bow. This time Swerve gets his knees up. And after a crucifix for a 2 count, the crowd is like getting to their feet, just applauding this match. They fight on the edge, DVD by Swerve, and then the Swerve stomp wins the match in 15 minutes and 45 seconds, eliminating Mark Briscoe. But I thought this was a great, great match, and the crowd got really into this.
Yeah, this was a really, really fun match, man. It's like we kind of got into it a little bit ago, but it's been really fun seeing like the audience just gradually get behind Swerve, and it's because like it's always cool seeing like the natural progression of a talent within a specific company, and it doesn't come off as forced. Like this is like he's having like a very organic rise right now, and it feels like all signs are pointing to some type of world championship. Again, it's that long-term gratification versus the short term. In the short term, the winning the Continental Classic, I don't think that's a short on Swerve. I don't feel that way personally. Like I do think the long-term gratification is him becoming AEW World Champion or being in that title picture. But I wouldn't be upset if he, won the Continental Classic. I think that's a great achievement to have and to further boost him up. The thing that I would be concerned about is like, okay, he gets this achievement, right? And then what? Like he's just like off to New Japan and like off the, you know what I'm saying? Like what is the after effect of him winning this tournament outside of the initial achievement, which is a big deal. But like, again, the Swerve and Mark Briscoe match, like very, very fun match. Like you said, the crowd was into it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the dynamic between these two. Like Mark Briscoe in singles matches has been a treat.
He's had a great tournament.
Yes, yes. He's done really, really well, man. Like, but Mark Briscoe is like a likable dude. So like, and he's obviously a great wrestler. So it's been very easy to sit through his matches, man, and watch him and Swerve go to work in this specific instance. So yeah, definitely enjoyed this match. Probably they think my favorite match of the night thus far, and then in this specific night of the Continental Classic, the best one.
Agreed. Renee interviews Mariah May, who asks her about her meeting with Tony Khan last week, and they said they're discussing her debut, and he loves Japanese wrestling, and that it's none of Renee's business. And tonight it's all about Toni Storm, and she will be studying Tony in the ring. So we continue. So they're going to build up this debut.
You think they leaning into the craze super fan storyline, or you think that's way too on the nose and they're probably going to lean away from that? Like at some point I kind of felt like they were going that way, like when Mariah being obsessed with Tony, but like it kind of seems like they've been like pulling back on that a little bit, and like she's kind of just like around, like the friend who's like stalking her prey, if you will, like waiting for the right moment to jump out there. Like that's initially I thought they were going to go the whole route, like being like obsessed with Tony, but it kind of feels like
they're not making her the crazy fangirl.
Yeah,
They're giving her more of kind of more cerebral than that. But I think everyone sees that as kind of the, she's playing this like understudy that is ultimately going to
target Tony at some point. Yeah.
So we were supposed to get MJF and Samoa Joe against the Devil's Masked Men. And Joe comes out, the lights flicker, and he's surrounded by 4 putty patrol, and the lights go out and they come on. Joe is all by himself in the ring, and the Devil appears on the screen, and we cut to MJF, who has been laid out backstage with a broken beer bottle, and he's out cold. Joe races to the back, and you're led to believe that James Storm is coming, right? Was that the conclusion? No, you're supposed to believe that Hangman Page left his mark here with a beer bottle.
For real? Now, you want to know what I took from that segment? Because I remember when Hangman and MJF did when they were doing their whole back and forth, and Hangman said that you're acting like you're being attacked, but really what's happening is you're like laying yourself out, if you will. Like he's acting as if he got attacked. That's what I thought most so they were leaning into, like Hangman bringing up that point that MJF's acting like he's being attacked, and then of course later shows up in the show when he's supposed to have this match, he's laid out backstage. I think that was like sort of the connection there. Like MJ, like it feels like they're trying their best to leave that feeling in the air, if you will, that MJF could be the person behind these attacks.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't feel like that. Like, bro, at this point, I really don't know who this individual is. Like, I've seen like theories about like it being Jungle Boy, like, you know what I'm saying, like this being his grand return. Like, I kind of just had this. I just want this shit to be over, bro. Like, who is this person? Let's get this over with and let's move on.
Yeah, it's for me. These masked devil men, they need to go. Okay, they've just got to be out. They come across
very Retribution-esque.
Oh, dude, like it just brings people to like stories that have been awful in pro wrestling when you have these goofs under a mask that are just these minions, and to me it feels like so minor league as well. So I would like to see the masked men just disappear. Let's continue. You can continue with the who done it, who's the mystery devil man, but yeah. So they did not end up delivering on a rare AEW match that was advertised that they did not deliver. And I guess that all is for the crowd in Montreal, if they were hoping to see MJF and Samoa Joe wrestle or not, or if they bought a ticket to see the Devil's Masked Men in action. I don't know if there were too many of those.
I feel like that would have been like so badly received online if they would have actually went through with that, like doing the whole, like just imagine like the two dudes with the devil mask standing like on the corner of the outside of the ring waiting on the hot tag. Like it's like I just can't like think that would have been like well received online if they would actually went through with that. I'm kind of glad they went with like some kind of alternative angle.
I didn't think it was a loss to the show to get rid of this match, but yeah, I don't know what the reaction was like in the arena for like your main eventers for the next pay-per-view as well that you had advertised as well. But anyway, we go to Jon Moxley backstage, says that he is humble in front of his God and his mother, but I know exactly who I am. I expected to be 3-0 and I expect to be 5-0. I'm the ace of the world. And then Swerve walks up, and I don't think they've exactly explained how this how the point system works and his record, because he's calling himself 9-0. 9-0. No, you're 3-0, and each win is worth 3 points. But says, you can't stop my momentum. I will do anything to win. Moxley says, me too. They'll see each other in Texas, and it's confirmed for next week. This was like a simple setup, but by the end, this felt like the main event for next week. It's the two undefeated guys in the Gold League, and that will be happening next week in Texas.
Very much looking forward to that. It's gonna be I think it's gonna be a very fun match. So the winner of this winner of that match, they advance out of the Gold League.
Well, the winner will go to 4-0, and then they still have one match left. So what they could do, it could end up where they get like they have a record and they're tied, but then this would obviously break the tiebreaker of who wins this match as well. So they could do that. But I would say the winner of this match, you would think, is positioned pretty strong to win the Gold League.
I know they advertised that Mark Briscoe could potentially play like spoiler to Jay White next week in terms of like him being in and out of the tournament. So that's a dynamic as well. So yeah,
right, because White would have to win next week to stay in. And like my initial thought was like a Moxley Danielson final. I feel like, you know, Swerve and Danielson is an interesting direction. Kingston in going to the end, but I think that, you know, you certainly could go Moxley or Swerve, and I think that people will be happy with that. Swerve just feels like you're riding the hot hand with him at this point, and putting him in a featured match on the pay-per-view.
But you want to know, like, outside of Swerve, you want to know who I've been like really impressed with this time? Brody King. I've been really enjoying his matches, bro. Like, this ain't got nothing to do with what we're talking about, but like the House of Black, like it's been so interesting seeing like Julia Hart and Brody King emerging as like the front runners in the group, and like Malachi and Buddy Matthews are kind of just like they're just kind of like there in a sense. Like it's so interesting seeing that dynamic and those two Civitanans emerge, you know, to the front. But yeah, bro, I've been really enjoying Brody King's work throughout this tournament. Like really enjoying his dynamic. But yeah, I think Swerve and Danielson is probably the route to go. What a schedule for Danielson out there broken over the bone. Jesus Christ. You see this dude? Three matches in 7 days?
Yeah, so he had to wrestle on Tuesday night, and then tonight he was working the Rampage tapings because they had the match he had to make up for that he missed in the first week. So yeah, he's doing matches on back-to-back nights in Montreal. Yes.
If you Gato, right, and Brad Danielson versus Swerve is happening at World's End. If that's the finals of the tournament, and you got this big match with Okada like 4 days later. Like, dude, Danielson, like, this dude is insane, bro. Like the schedule that he chooses to take on and the matches that he chooses to take on, like in this specific time frame, on a broken orbital bone coming off of that surgery. Like, you got this big match with Kazuchika Okada, and I'm assuming that he's going to be in the finals of this Continental Classic. I mean, why wouldn't you want to have Danielson there, especially considering he's an AEW contracted talent? But like, you thinking about it, dude, he has Okada in this big rematch, dream match 4 days later in Japan. You know, at New Japan's biggest show in the calendar year. Danielson is insane, dude.
You know what's weird, and I won't get into spoiler territory here, but like there's like an injury that they play up with Danielson on the Tuesday tapings, but that's not airing till Saturday. So tonight's match with Garcia airs on Friday, and he's got to work it before the injury airs the next night. Like, that's some weird stuff there that you have to figure out. Like, you can't really be selling the effects of your Tuesday match on Wednesday night because the Wednesday night airs before Tuesday's match. Anyway, they decided to get into the weird time continuum.
But I say, but if anybody can pull it off, leave it to Danielson. There you go.
Ben Mankiewicz of Turner Classic Movies introduced Toni Storm here, saying tonight might be her greatest role yet. So sit back, chin up, and watch for the shoe. Ben here not going out for the tits out line. He's not going for that line, obviously.
I've never heard of this dude until tonight.
I've seen, like, he is a pretty like noteworthy like movie reviewer and host, but I mean, we don't get Turner Classic Movies up here, so he's someone I have had to look up in the past, but I mean, it's in the Turner. I mean, he was kind of like funny in this role for the.
He was good at it.
Yeah, I mean, this was like a cool little Turner tie-in that you had at your disposal. So out comes Toni Storm with Luther and Mariah May to take on Skye Blue. And man, I give a lot of credit to Skye Blue because this crowd was all behind Toni Storm. Yeah. They're all chanting for her. She was in a really tough role where she's kind of been in this tweener position. And in this match, like, she was designed as sort of the baby face, but really like everyone was behind Toni Storm and they were choosing like her over Skye Blue. But I thought Skye Blue was the impressive one to me in this match. She hit Toni with her own hip attack, Toni hit the hip attack against the barricade. And then later in the match, it's Skye Blue hitting her own hip attack, does an Otani style face wash, and then hits the code blue for this great near fall. Storm comes back with the superplex, and they did this spot where Luther puts Storm on his shoulders, and then she runs Skye Blue off the apron, which is the most ridiculous looking thing, but it really got over to this crowd where I think they have no fear of any ideas for this Toni Storm character.
I think that it works because like the hilarity of the Toni Storm character and the comedic relief of it all. Like, I think it just works. Toni Storm will be able to pull off things that a lot of other people won't be able to pull off just because of the character that she's playing. But what have you like so far? Like, is they clearly fully behind, all in on Toni Storm and this timeless Toni Storm persona? Like, what have you made of that as we like gone on, and of course now her being AEW Women's World Champion?
I think overall it's been a big positive for her. The audience is clearly super behind like the character stuff. And I guess it's kind of taking what works as the character into the match itself and sort of having that balance, because I do think it's an audience that they do want the strong match on top of it. And some of this kind of leans sideways. But I thought in this match, they had the spot with Luther, but in particular, like, I thought Skye Blue worked really hard in this match, and this could have gone, and the crowd could have just taken over here with their chants for Toni and having fun. But like, they got into some of these near falls with Skye Blue. She got the code blue near fall, and then after a Storm Zero counter with a jackknife cover, she was reversed, and Storm got the cover in 9:19. But I thought overall, like, the audience enjoyed this match, and I thought Skye Blue had a really good performance.
Yeah, speaking of Skye Blue, like, what I'm really enjoying about AEW's like women's division, I think over the past like several months or so, when they do have the opportunity to have those spots. Like you're starting to see like this young core that they have within that women's division, and they're all like coming into their own like at the exact same time, and that's like a good problem to have when you have these different individuals. Like you just talking about Julia Hart, like her finding herself. You talked about Skye Blue, like she's sort of coming into her own as well. I feel like Chris Statlander has hit like that next. Like she's like even when she was like during her TBS title reign, I feel like Chris was like just leveling up like as she went on and stuff like that. Then of course you had Toni Storm, who's found like got into this whole different persona, and then you got people waiting on the sidelines. Like you got the Jamie Haters, waiting on the sidelines. And what was the last time Britt Baker was on TV? You know what I'm saying? Like
she's been off for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got like but AEW women's event, they have like a lot of
Thunder Rosa is still out.
Thunder Rosa. What is like? Do you remember when Thunder Rosa was doing the videos on her YouTube channel? Like I know we had like updates on the post wrestling site. Like she would like say like she was going like I think it was when CM Punk was still in AEW. Like she was like she was going to be at the Greensboro Coliseum or whatever like that, and she was going to have like a workout, and like Doc Samson was like it looks like she's all good to go essentially. Like if we just get through this one part, and like she's kind of been. Like I would have thought at some point by now she would have been back, but I guess not. But
another back injury, like we were talking about.
Yeah, there we go, another back injury. Like that's another great point. Like as far as like you can't specifically like put a time frame on these things, but like going back to AEW Women's, but they have like a strong core group of talent that if you essentially just give them the time to let them develop and just put them in spots where it matters, they'll probably more than likely deliver. I've always been like real big on that in pro wrestling. I know it may not be as simple as well as how I'm about to put it, but I've always been of the mindset that if you really want to find out if a talent is ready for a certain spot, or if you think that like if you just want to see if they're ready to hit that next level, the only way to truly find out is to put them in that position. And if they swim, then you look like a genius. If they sink, then you can just regroup and find another way and find another path to get them back to that next level. And like I think they've sort of done that with a lot of that young core that I was just referring to, and just essentially just throwing them to the wolves and see what happens. And a lot of them have shown up and delivered.
After the match, Rio made her return. She hasn't been on AEW TV since April. Came out
of AEW.
And just laid out Toni Storm, and that seems to be our next direction for the women's title here. But she got a good response coming out here. It's been a long time since she's been on AEW television, and so
people love Rio.
Yeah. Then they announced their Canadian tour for next year. They're going to Ottawa, Toronto. They won't be running the Scotiabank Arena, which is where they did their TV previously, but they're going to be running the smaller Coca-Cola Coliseum where WWE does house shows at. And then announced dates for Quebec City, London, Winnipeg, Edmonton, Vancouver, and Calgary, which I imagine coincides with the Calgary Stampede like they did this past July, which is smart to piggyback off that. But outside of like running a smaller venue for Toronto, like they are running like the major arenas in these cities. Like,
do you think they'll try to use the Owen Hart Foundation tournament as a way to like generate ticket sales, like for that specific tour?
I would imagine so. Like in particular the Western Canadian ones, like they're May 8th is Edmonton, May 11th is Vancouver. I could see them maybe starting it around then, and you could wrap it up again in Calgary. Like that would seem to make sense, and you run the tournament over the course of a month.
There we go. But maybe we get Liger back. Hopefully.
Don't blink. Yeah. I don't know if he'll be so quick to get on that plane ride for another one. Then we go to Jay Lethal and Jay White in the Gold League. And man, this is when the crowd just took over. They were so enamored that these two guys have the same name in Jay. And that just became like the crowd was loud for this match, but I don't know if this crowd was that much into this match versus just like chanting like anything they could think of. And apparently this extended to the main event when they started chanting like Jay for Jay Riso as well. So they just got it in their head about, look at all these Jays we've got. And that like just took over here. But I mean, you turn this on, it was like, this felt like a heated match, but I guess you'll take your reaction where you can get it. But
my favorite one of the night was doing the Lethal versus Jay White match was the "Let's go Jay sucks."
Yeah, they're going back and forth with the Jay chants. Bravo, Montreal. White is working on Jay's leg thread. This was actually like it was like a very good technical match here. He snaps Jay's knee, then goes for a brain buster. Each man tries to gouge the other's eye when there's a sleeper suplex by White. Then a Blade Runner gets stopped, and as Jay goes for the lethal injection, it's caught with the Blade Runner. That gets countered, and then he tries another lethal injection attempt, but gets chop blocked and goes down from the knee. Blade Runner into a roll up, but White reverses, gets on top, hooks the leg, and pins Jay Lethal to eliminate him along with Mark Briscoe. So White moves to 2-1 with 6 points in the Gold League. But they were, I thought, like, just as a match, it was like a nice technical match, not at the level of Swerve and Mark Briscoe. I would say of the tournament matches, that was definitely the standout on this show. But nothing wrong with the match. The crowd just, I mean, this was their match to have fun with, and they did.
Yeah, it was fine. It wasn't like wasn't like a world beater or anything like that. It was a cool match, but like the crowd, like they definitely, it seemed like this seemed like that point of the show where they were just like, we just about to have a good time, and they just tried to come up with like any J chant that they could for this specific match. But I think Lethal and White worked a solid match. It'll be interesting to see how Jay White factors into the whole he continues to factor into the Continental Classic next week when he faces Mark Briscoe and how that all pans out. Hey, I wanted to ask, like, so Jay White, he's gone from essentially being in the main event scene for like the past several months or so. Like, what have you made of the transition from being in that spot to like where he is now? And he isn't in a bad spot, but like I'm always curious to see how bookers how bookers move talents away from those like prime time spots and like move them away from it and see like how they can sort of keep that momentum going. Like, what have you made of how they transitioned Jay White coming off of that loss to MJF at Full Gear, and then in the match not being as well received as some might have expected, expecting like a one-on-one match, a simple straight one-on-one match between the two. It was a lot of criticism coming out of it, but how have you made of how they transitioned Jay White from that loss to where he is now?
Yeah, I think it's been tricky, but overall, like he's alive in the tournament. I don't think anyone's expecting him to win the tournament, but at least he's alive. He should, maybe like he should probably get one more key win in this tournament. But yeah, it's like I think the biggest thing he was battling was, I thought he raised his game significantly going against MJF and like a lot of the talking segments in particular. I hated all the teasing of MJF being taken out on the pay-per-view, but the match itself, I really enjoyed the match, probably more than most, but I typically get into like the lengthier, like Jay White style of matches, which isn't everyone's cup of tea. And I would say with Jay, like, I think he's going to be in good shape regardless coming out of this. It's tough because you have so many of these names that are percolating in this main event mix, and not all of them are always going to get that sunshine. So with him, I would imagine he kind of becomes like collision centric after this tournament, and that'll be his focus is there. But I'm curious to see like where he goes after this, after the Continental Classic. I think he's going to be like a player in that upper mix.
Yeah, for sure.
Then Excalibur, I'm not kidding, had to make 14 announcements for the upcoming 3 shows. So if you got out your pen and paper, folks, Rampage will have Powerhouse Hobbs and Konosuke Takeshita against Christopher Daniels and Matt Sydal, Abaddon against Trish Adora, Orange Cassidy and Danhausen appearing, and Bryan Danielson against Daniel Garcia in a Blue League match, which is probably the biggest match they put on Rampage in quite some time. Then Collision, which was taped on Tuesday, Danielson against Andrade, Claudio against Kingston in the Blue League matches, Mercedes Martinez against Willow Nightingale, and Kenny Omega against Ethan Page. But we're not done yet. Winter is coming next Wednesday. Swerve against Moxley, Jay White against Mark Briscoe, Roosh against Jay Lethal, Samoa Joe will speak, Hangman Page against Roderick Strong, and oh yeah, Kevin Marshall and Ross Von Erich return to Dallas next week, which, dude, is quite the coup that AEW got them, because you heard both Tony Khan and Paul Levesque stating, we would love to do stuff to promote the movie. And the fact that they're in Texas next week, I promise you, Kevin Von Erich is going to get the biggest reaction on next week's show. Like when they had brought him back in and around Dallas, dude, he is just super popular and we're talking like 40 years since like the real heyday of the Von Erichs.
Because I remember when Ross and Marshall were in MLW, MLW would always like heavily market them whenever they would come to Dallas. Like I know would like they would send them dudes to do like interviews like with the Dallas Morning News, like promote these dudes like all over these different networks and stuff like that, like in the area. They're a hit in Dallas, and I think it works well because MJF is in the movie as well. So you would naturally assume that there's going to be some type of interaction between those individuals. Maybe they do like a backstage or something.
Dude, someone's getting the claw. Someone's getting like a 3-way claw, and you could maybe
the dudes in the devil mask.
Yeah,
maybe the dudes in the devil mask get the claw. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Utilize those guys.
Perhaps so.
Do you think that Marshall and Ross are going to stick around in AEW?
I could definitely see them. I would definitely book them on some of these like they're doing a bunch of dates in Texas over the next few weeks. I would at least use them for a little, at least while this movie is out. And the Von Erich name is going to get a lot of publicity with this movie. That I would, if I would at least like be entertaining. Yeah, the idea of them being used. I could certainly see them being used.
Likely, probably like tape something for Rampage. Like try to use that as like, hey, you guys are going to see Marshall and Ross in action.
That's a good idea. Do the angle on Wednesday and set up a match for Friday. That will be in the same building. Yeah, you could certainly do that. And you could have Kevin in the corner for both. So there you go. We've just booked Rampage. Main event, it is Christian and Adam Copeland. If there was any doubt what this crowd was here to see, the bell rang, and dude, this place was amped, okay? And this was not them just like having fun with chants. Like it was super heated at the beginning, and it was almost like this audience was like, are they really going to give us this match? And when the bell rang, they're like, oh, we're really getting a 20-minute main event here between these two. So very aggressive from Copeland in the beginning. He's bashing Cage's head into the desk, stops a low blow, and he stomps Christian's hand. And it's all Copeland until Cage tosses him over the barricade, and we go through the commercial break. Christian tries for a frog splash, getting a 2 count, and then he sets up for the spear, but it's countered into an impaler DDT. They did a bunch of spear teases with counters that were really well done in this. Copeland hits a Liger bomb for a 2 count, and then the kill switch gets stopped, and they just start going through near falls. The spear gets set up by Copeland, and the crowd raises to its feet, waiting for Copeland to hit this, but instead Cage leapfrogs and hits Copeland with the kill switch for a big near fall. So now it's Christian's turn to tease the spear, runs into the corner, and somehow in Copeland running out of the corner, he knocked into Bryce and must have like decapitated the man, because he was down for like 5 minutes from this errant brush from Adam Copeland. So with the ref down, Christian kicks him in the balls, grabs the TNT belt, and then Copeland ducks the belt shot, and they do a double spear spot where both go down. And with that, out comes Shayna Wayne, and she walks down, and 5,200 people realized, oh, this is the finish we're getting. And she grabs the belt, and she's, which way? The announcers are like, she's conflicted. I was like, should you be calling that she's conflicted when we're not supposed to believe she's conflicted here? But she stands there. She's looking at both. Decks Adam Copeland. The crowd boos this. Kill switch by Christian. And then he stands on the neck and stomps Adam Copeland's neck before pinning him. And this is right up against the hour. They actually went over by like a minute or two. Michael Sampson gets into the ring to add the realism here. And we just cut. We are off the air, and you're left to believe that Adam Copeland's neck is broken.
Did you hear Bryce Brinsberg when Christian was standing on I think after I think he was like, he stepped on Copeland's neck and he was holding up the TNT belt, and you can like audibly hear Bryce Brinsberg saying, go, 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 go.
Oh, really?
Like, you can like audibly hear that. And I had to rewind it on my TV to make sure that I was hearing that right. Like, and I looked at the time, I was like, that they kind of, because usually they do the thing where they like, we're going to stick with this as long as we need to. And then it is like 2 minutes after.
This one, they made it clear. It's like this match is scheduled for like 20 minutes or television time remaining. And there was no, hey, we're going to go 5 past. Like, I think they had the heart out on this one. And they did go like a minute or so over. But yeah, they raced to get off the air at the end here. Really, like, I would say somewhat you would maybe want to like let it digest a bit more, like the turn and the guy's neck has just been compromised here at the end. I thought the big spot at the end was going to be like Christian wins this match and then he just makes out with Shayna Wayne in the middle of that ring, and this place would have gone livid. Which they still might go in that direction, but I will imagine people's like thumbs up or thumbs down will come on how they receive the angle at the end. But I thought this was a hell of a match before the turn at the end, which I mean, Christian is probably going to be pretty great paired with this woman and Nick Wayne.
Yes.
I think it will make for some good storyline stuff. But dude, I thought the two had this was a great match. I thought they had a really strong match, great crowd, and they came up with a lot of cool stuff in this.
I was definitely expecting Copeland and Christian to have a like solid match at least. And I think with the when you have a crowd like that that's just excited to see the match, it only amplifies the match overall. Like even like I think that Copeland and Christian, like it was no question that they were going to work really smooth together, and the crowd only amplified that. So yeah, I wasn't like surprised per se that they had the match they had. As far as the post match angle, you know, it's probably the most like untrustworthy family tree pro wrestling. Like you got Nick Wayne turning on Darby, and now you got Shayna Wayne or Shayna Cage now. We're aligning with Christian Cage, Shayna Cage and Nick Cage and Christian Cage and whatever Kill Switch Cage and whoever else is Cage. But yeah, I mean I remember initially when I saw it, I was kind of like, they going this route. But then like when I started thinking about it, I was like just thinking about like the run that Christian has been on specifically. I'm just like, he's gonna make this work. Christian is gonna make this work, and this is probably gonna be funnier than what I initially thought when I saw the angle. Because I'm like, oh, maybe like I assumed that she was gonna align with Christian, but then like it was just my initial thoughts about it, and then like when I started thinking about it more and more, I was like, Christian's probably gonna make this work, and this is probably gonna be like a fun.
Dude, imagine the television wedding between Christian and Shayna Wayne.
It's going to be hilarious. Like, it's probably going to be like a fun, like good 2 to 3 months of television that they can get out of this. Dude, Christian, this run that he's been on, this is like, but there's nothing that I enjoy seeing more than like a veteran wrestler that is able to find like that next gear later on in their career, and it actually works. And it's not like this forced thing that they're trying to convince you that works, and it's like, it just doesn't fit. But like,
he's not living off any nostalgia. Like
he's not, bro. This is like some fresh dude. This dude has literally gotten over by talking about people's dead fathers. Like that's essentially where this all began. And then like now he's like transitioned into just more so leaning away from the memeable aspects of that, and like channeling that heat and just making sure that it's like it's more wrestling centric now. And like he's able to channel that off to Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus or Kill Switch, whatever his name is now. So yeah, man, I think that this is going to be a fun storyline that they're going to get off. It'll be interesting to see how everything plays out. But you talking about I was going to talk about the winners coming thing, but we could finish off the Christian angle.
Yeah,
Shayna Cage.
I can understand some people like after like a 20-minute match and you get like the run and finish with the ref bump and everything. But I personally I like where this story is going, because I think it's going to be. I think the lead up to this was pretty good. Like once you got Adam Copeland into more of like this state of, okay, the match is on, I'm coming for your title and everything. Like that seemed to really dial everything in. The Christian work's been very strong, and I think him with Shayna Wayne is going to be really entertaining stuff that you can extend this with. So, and I thought it was like a great match up into it. And it's like, if the angle is to further something strong, then I'm all for it in that case. So, I don't know what the reaction was like from others because I didn't get to see, but overall, like I thought it was I thought overall like there were some really good matches on tonight's show between the Continental Classic matches have been pretty consistently strong, and tonight you had that Swerve Briscoe match that I thought was the best of the bunch. Really good main event, and like the women's match, they gave them the crossover segment starting off hour 2, which is unfamiliar territory. So it showed that they felt that had the strength for a segment like that. And I thought in particular, Skye Blue performed really well in an environment where a lesser performer in that role could have just been steamrolled by a crowd that was just super into like the cult attraction of Toni Storm.
But that reminds me, that just came to mind. I think it was this was 2022, I think it was, and I remember when they were doing the Owen Hart Foundation qualifiers, and I think Red Velvet was facing, I want to say Willow Nightingale. I think she was facing Willow, and like the crowd was like, and Red at this point was like an established babyface talent within AEW, and I remember, but this was when Willow was like on an up and up, and the crowd kind of turned on Red a little bit, and that kind of just reminded me of that situation a little bit, and seeing how she adjusted in that specific match. But yeah, I think Sky Blue did a really good job adjusting to the crowd, and they were behind Toni Storm, but they weren't against Sky Blue. They were just like more for Toni, you know, if that makes sense.
It's a super popular act in Toni Storm,
It is.
so it's tough when you're like, I thought at the last pay-per-view, like, would Hikaru Shida be in that? And she was another one. Like, they turned, it wasn't like the crowd was against Hikaru Shida in that one either. Let's go to some feedback. If you have any super chats, you can send them in. Jake writes in, with the Canadian dates now out, it makes me think, is AEW sort of missing out by not doing a full UK and Europe tour outside of Wembley? So Tony Khan had stated that All In is going to be their only UK date. Do you think it's smart to just build up to the one big stadium event, Andrew? Or do you think that there's more to be had by piggybacking with some other TV over there, or doing a separate tour, maybe at a different time in the year? How would you go ahead with like the success in the UK for them?
I think for this first go around that they did this past August, I think that's fine. But I don't necessarily think it's like it hurts. It would hurt AEW to run like a Dynamite that week from the UK. You know what I'm saying? Just to add a little bit more like, razzle dazzle, if you will, to the overall week and continuously build that up and stuff like that. I mean, I'm pretty sure they can run like, what you run, the O2 Arena? Run the O2, you know what I'm saying? You can run something like that. And what was that that venue that they were talking about like before, but it was way before AEW like announced the All In like going to London. I remember the
Craven's Cottage.
Craven's Cottage.
Craven.
Yeah, there we go. Like you can run something like that. You know what I'm saying? Do something along those. I think it would just add to the overall attraction of the week, and that could be your own big, AEW week in London, England, and just have a varying different events and stuff like that. Turn it into a big festivity. Like y'all gonna be, they've done like really well with these ticket sales, like for All In 2024.
Yeah,
promoting this thing 10 months, 9 months out. They've done like really well from what I've seen so far. So I mean, just judging by that, I'm assuming that it's going to be like 60,000, 70,000 people that's going to pack this thing out at Wembley next year. So I would be all for like them, going and doing the Dynamite and maybe giving the people like a Rampage in addition to that. I don't see the harm in it.
Let's go to the forum here. A couple pieces of feedback before we wrap up. Benjamin writes, I can't imagine fans in the Bell Center being too pleased with a shenanigans finish on that Copeland cage match. I'm a little disappointed since it took a match that I've wanted to see between two talents in different stations throughout their WWE runs and giving them a platform to do a match without the WWE style shenanigans. I feel like Switch in the Matrix, kneeling in front of Trinity, murmuring a painful, not like this, before being unplugged. I know this isn't the end of the program with Copeland and Cage, but in my opinion, it's a misstep that costs creative capital. We didn't need a primer or sampler match en route to a better one. We just needed the two talents working the shit out of one. Whomever is influencing the creative or whatever this booking trend is with Tony Khan, I hope it ends soon or evolves into something better. So there you go. A thumbs down on the booking tonight.
Have you seen like some of the I've seen a lot of that criticism about Tony Khan, I guess, in his the booking strategy, like leaning more into the entertainment aspect, if you will, and like leaning more heavily into that. Have you noticed that trend? And what's sort of your thoughts about it? Like I think AEW is kind of like always, like from the start, there've been like those little drops of like those entertainment WWE-esque things that a lot of people compare it to. Like even when I know those were like advertisements and stuff, like when Kenny Omega and then would come out like in the costumes or whatever it is, the themed stuff or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Just stuff like that. You would always see that sprinkled in at certain points, but I guess now
I think it's a great point that you bring up, that like you can certainly find like different areas of AEW's history that, I think some of the most polarizing hires for them are ones where people don't have like a great sight of like what their actual contributions are. Like you look like at a Mike Mansouri, whose name I just always hear people bringing up. It's like, here was this guy that was in WWE for over a decade. So it's just the natural assumption that he's bringing all of this kind of WWE influence with him. Or you hear like a Jimmy Jacobs is in a position where people are going to look at like his creative tendencies as well. And therefore you put all of this under a microscope. Like, just for instance, if that Dinner Debonair skit with Jericho and MJF aired today, I think it would be crucified by people. Not to say it was perfectly received then, but today I think people would be just outraged that this is the WWE-ification of this company. If something like that were to air, even though at that time it was the quote unquote like golden era, and it worked at the time. Like it got them, it's, I think whenever you are sensing like there's an influx of different people, especially that have WWE pass in a creative or production capacity.
But Jimmy Jacobs been in Impact for like the past 5 years.
I think as well, people are looking at some of the creative there as well in Impact, where they went pretty far out there, like murdering people. So I think like he gets that as well as like the WWE on his resume as well. But yeah, I mean, there's stuff on the show I'm enjoying. There's stuff on the show I'm not enjoying. Like the big angle, like this devil thing. Like I was not super crazy about all the MJF Adam Cole stuff, but it was definitely attracting a certain audience. Like I can't deny that it was popular for some people. It wasn't my cup of tea, but you sort of have to be looking at what's making the most impact, what's working, and are we satisfying the most amount of people, knowing that there are going to be people that are turned off by like heavy, like comedic portrayals of like an MJF,
the non in-ring aspects of the show.
Yeah, which this company has largely like built itself upon, where like very limited backstage skits, very limited like, not to say it's like a straight bell to bell wrestling nonstop, but it was heavily concentrating on like, you'd get 5 to 6 good to excellent matches every Wednesday on Dynamite. And it's you can see with the matchmaking, like not every match is designed to go out there and be this 4-star, unbelievable television match, and you're trying to weigh all of that. So I get some of the criticisms, but some of them I think are kind of overemphasized too. Let's continue here with Andrew from Cape Breton. Another good show tonight. It's crazy to say that this company is having one of its down periods, but I guess when most people think of down periods, they think of WCW in 2000 or the Hogan era in TNA. Speaking of which, it seems Aces and Eights showed up tonight. Maybe Brother Devon is the devil. They used to drink all their beers through their balaclavas. There seemed to be a lack of emphasis on the devil storyline, as the angle was real quick tonight, and I like the potential direction of MJF against Page against MJF in the future. I like the direction everything is going in AEW, and maybe instead of the on-screen product, they need to start working on local promotion of their events, as I heard that was an issue with the Collision taping. Things seem to be turning around a bit, especially with the news of Bryan Danielson fining people for their social media behavior, which might be the best news AEW has had all year, including the Wembley attendance.
There was a lot in that, a lot of different points that this gentleman hit. But like one of the things, I guess, like going back to the devil thing, like I think, bro, just a lot of people are just ready for this thing, like to just speed up and like get into like the nuts and bolts of it instead of just like waiting like this. Excuse me if I don't remember, like has there been a time when the person behind the mask is like verbally addressed anything yet? Has that happened yet? Like I can't, like my memory's falling.
Might have had like some distorted voice box or something at some point, but not like a human voice.
I think that people are just ready to see the next progression of this thing. I think some people are just ready for it to be over. Like I do think there are, like, especially tonight, you can see like those when it gets clogged up in storylines, especially with this Joe and MJF thing, when that's the primary focus, but then you also have the devil aspect. I think a lot of people are just ready for this thing to just like let's just move on so we can speed up this whole process type of deal.
What if it's revealed to be Bryan Danielson and the minions are the disciplinary committee?
Jesus Christ, Bryan Danielson is the devil. That actually might work, considering like the him being the positioning. Did you see the interview that he did when he addressed like the like him being I guess like the head of
on the committee.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you see the interview that he did? Yeah. Dallas is always like great in those what's the name media settings, but that actually would be funny if he was the devil, him being the head of disciplinary at AEW and stuff like that.
Last one here is Jordan from the Bronx. The tournament matches have been mostly predictable, but very entertaining. Less interference, clean finishes, and every match has weight to it. If this concept could be applied more to the rest of the product, then we'd really be in business. Too often, heels resort to dirty tactics, ref bumps, run-ins, and other trickery that leaves competitive matches feeling flat. Toni Storm's matches require a lot of quick draw production on the fly, and most of the cues were missed. Heavily looking forward to Mox and Swerve. I thought they would have saved that for the last block match. Either way, I'm torn between who I'd want to win. I'm a big fan of both. Maybe we get our first draw. That's a possibility you could do next week. You could do the 20-minute draw if you don't want to tip your hand either way. But I would say this is the value of doing a tournament that people get into is like once the stakes are there, like here are the two undefeated guys after 3 matches. It means that much more for a match that I'm sure people were already interested in, but now it's heightened.
I say to his point about just the structure of the tournament. I have really enjoyed the aspect of people not being allowed at ringside and the limiting the interference and stuff like that, especially for the heels. It just allows for like a very straightforward wrestling match that I think a lot of people, especially the primary AEW audience, like clamors for. That's kind of what they desire and that's what they want. Just these straightforward bell to bell wrestling matches and leave all the extra stuff to the wayside or save it for after the match. So I think that has worked really well in AEW's favor in terms of, like, I guess, gaining back or regaining the trust of some of their core audience who maybe felt like they were leaning towards more of that entertainment aspect.
And there, everybody, is tonight's edition of Dynamite from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And this has been a great time chatting, catching up with my man, Andrew Thompson.
My God.
And you are going to be back, not this weekend, the following weekend with the NWA podcast with Nate Milton and the man who I was joined by today with Brandon Thurston, Dr. Chris Ely.
Hey.
So I got 2/3 of the NWA podcast to chat with today. So I'm sure you guys will be chatting about the big return of Phil Brooks.
Yeah.
Which, Chris was very clear in letting us know today that you guys all called, that you all knew that CM Punk would be back. And the only question that I have that I'm going to submit a question for this month is that if CM Punk gets to headline WrestleMania with Seth Rollins on night 1, will he be considered headlining WrestleMania?
Bro, that is one of the funniest conversations that I ever think we had about the if people don't know what John's talking about, me and Chris had like this huge debate about like if night 1 of WrestleMania is considered like a true main event. It was probably one of the funniest conversations we ever had. Very, very.
I'm gonna get you guys a shirt. I'm gonna night 1 headliner,
very, very,
or night 2 headliner. Man. You can have the 2 as well. The one of the great moments in NWA podcast history.
That was a great time. I definitely enjoyed myself on that podcast. But we talking about the Listen, I wanted to mention that winter is coming. They didn't announce Sting for Ric Flair for next week, did they?
No, you're right. Yeah,
I would assume because what's that gonna be the 3-year anniversary since?
Yeah, that's right. 3 years since Sting arrived.
Yeah, man. Hey, have you tried Woo Energy? Have you tried it?
No, I will not be trying the Woo Energy.
Do you have any intention?
I don't think it's even available up here. I would imagine. Do you see it in stores? Is it any? Have you ever seen it out in regular stores?
I have not seen. I have not seen it. I have like zero interest in trying any Woo Energy. I feel like that shit probably make you piss dragon blood. I don't want to drink any type of Woo Energy drink or anything like that. I'm good.
I'll tell you, you can't throw a rock here without hitting a Prime energy drink, dude. That thing's everywhere.
Prime all over the place in Canada.
I've never tried it, but it's everywhere. Every store you go in, you see Prime. Like
look at that.
He's making some bank off that Prime energy drink.
I saw he was on one of the I think one of like the CNBC, I think it was like Squawk on the Street or something like that, when he was talking about like he made like $1 billion in the KSI revenue off the Prime. I was like, God,
yeah,
damn,
open up the books. Let's see that. I want to see that
stuff. So yeah, man. Yeah. It's a lot of stuff going on in pro wrestling right now, man. Wrestling is loaded. We got Deadline this week, Final Battle next week.
What's your level of interest for Final Battle?
Dude, I am not really interested in much on that show outside of Athena versus Billy Starks. Like that is
that's a third of the matches that have been announced so far. So dude, they've got 3 matches as of right now. Like they haven't. We're a week out. What's going to be on this card?
Where's the show again?
They're doing back-to-back nights in Garland, Texas, with
Garland,
Collision
Texas.
the Saturday. Yeah, so they're doing the same building both nights.
Yeah, so Athena and Billy Starks, that's the marquee.
That's the main event. Like you're in Texas for Athena. Like that. Should be. You figure like there's obviously not going to be an Eddie Kingston title defense if these titles are up in the tournament. The Bucks and Hangman lost the 6-man tag titles. Joe gave up the TV title. Like your biggest star is like Athena on this show.
Yeah. So I think it might be best bet to roll with Athena. I mean, it's the strongest story within that ROH brand anyway. So I mean, you might as well just lean into it. And it's been a great story that they made. It's kind of crazy like that. Like one of the strongest like angles within the AEW/ROH women's division is like.
Oh, I'd say it's the strongest women's program they have.
Yeah, and it's like not highlighted like on the main program, but it's like the strongest story. You know, it's just interesting that whole dynamic and that.
Keep running with Athena in this role, or
do
you move her up?
She's like, see, this is the thing, right? She's like killing it right now. And we talked. I remember we talked ago, like on the when Nate and Chris, we had this discussion about like where Athena goes, and I was just saying, like, dude, you might as well just keep letting her run with it at this point. Because like if you this is my whole thing, right? Okay, you can move towards Billy Starks and let her run with it, but the thing with that is, okay, you have Athena on the side now. What do you do? Like, okay, let's say she goes on the AEW's primary women's division, their primary roster. I feel like she'll just be right back in the exact same position that she was prior to the ROH Women's World Title reign, and then we'll just be stuck at we'll be right back at first base with this whole thing again. You know, I feel like at this point, you might as well just keep running with it until you find like that right person. And I think that person may be Billy Starks, or maybe as Willow Nightingale. I think Willow could be the person to take the title off her. They haven't done the one. I would assume at some point Toni wants to do that one-on-one with Ronda versus Athena. Like I would want to get that done at some point, like try to make that happen at some point in time. But yeah, Athena, I think they should just let her run with it, dude. Like until you just find that right time. What's it 2 years now that she'll be ROH Women's World Champion, or coming up on 2 years? Because she won the title she beat Mercedes.
Was it Death Before Dishonor last year? She won it. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
I think she won the title at Final Battle 2022. I think I might be. I know she beat Mercedes, and I remember Athena's mother was in attendance, and I remember they were like playing that up and bigging that up. Yep, it was at ROH Final Battle 2022 last year.
Oh, okay. So it's a year.
So, yeah. I'm tripping.
There we go.
I said 2 years. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. Andrew, we have to do these more often. It's always fun catching up with you. Again, you can follow all of his work at postwrestling.com and follow the man at AD Thompson __. Emphasis on the double underscore. Okay, he's bringing that into vogue for everybody out there as well, in all of his social media handles. I mean, whatever social platform you expand onto once Twitter just blows up, please keep the double underscore. You've really popularized it.
Hey, did you ever get into Threads? Did you ever get into that?
I'm on Threads, but I'm hanging on by a thread. Let's just say like it's not. I'm there because it's like it's my backup thing, but man, it's I don't sign up for social media so that like it's a chore that I've got to like keep this stuff updated. It's like I go on Threads. I was like, dude, there's like tumbleweeds here. Like it's just you know what I mean? It's like, come on, is anybody here? Knock knock. So anyway, Threads exists. They had a great weekend when everyone was upset, but it still continues. That is going to wrap everything up. Friday, I will be back. It is Rewind to SmackDown, and making his big debut with me, at least. Our man Neil Flanagan will be here to review Tribute to the Troops with me. Maybe he'll sing a little Hardy for us, or The War and the Treaty as well. So, and he will be taking calls as well. So you can call in, postwrestlingcafe.com exclusive on a Friday night. And then coming up this weekend, Brandon Davey will have a Deadline review on a Saturday night, and Sunday it'll be delayed by a day with Karen Peterson with Kate from Montreal and John Cena chatting Collision Course. And Kate was at the shows in Montreal this week, so we will get a live perspective from her. We've also got our man WH Park, our other man, WH Park, with Karen Peterson on Friday for Post Pro Res. So a ton of shows coming your way up at postwrestling.com. Andrew, thank you as always for jumping on with me. Wei Ting will be back next week. He thanks you greatly for joining us tonight as well. And that's it. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. That will conclude Rewind a Dynamite.